Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the beginning of the Preservation Resource Center's month-long celebration of New Orleans special vernacular type shotgun houses. This is, yes, June, Shotgun House Month, and we're so excited to launch it with an intro to shotguns with the very special head of New Orleans Architecture Tours, Katrina Horning. Thank you so much for being with us, Katrina. I'm Danielle Del Sol. I'm the director of the Preservation Resource Center, and I want to welcome all of you and thank you so much for watching this evening. We're so excited to bring this presentation to you in just a few moments. But before we get started, I have a few people to thank and a few housekeeping items to give you. Oh, and I want to show off my special shotgun house earrings, of course, just for this occasion. But I want to thank the people who have made Shotgun House Month possible for the Preservation Resource Center. And that starts with Entablature Design, Build, and Entablature Realty, who for several years have been the lead sponsor of Shotgun House Month for the PRC. And we are extremely grateful to them for their continued support and for making this possible. I want to also thank Clandestine Event Rentals, Axelrad and Associates Home Inspectors, Colmex Construction, Green Coast Enterprises, Atomic Architecture, Claire Lewis Designs, Durable Slate Company, Preservation Title, Ellie Sanders and Isabel Sanders, iMoto, and 89.9 WWNO. I also want to thank some of our long-term sponsors who make all the programming throughout the year possible for the PRC. These, of course, include the Hellas Foundation for support of all PRC programming, the Klein Lehman Esperanza Fund, the Ella West Freeman Fund, which supports our conservation and education efforts, and also the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, which has supported our Revival Grants program. So thanks so much to everyone involved with those foundations and organizations that make our work as a nonprofit possible throughout the year. I want to tell you all that as we celebrate our special vernacular architecture shotgun houses in the month of June, we're also raising money to support our Revival Grants program, where we bring free home repairs to low-income homeowners in New Orleans historic neighborhoods. This means we work on a lot of shotgun houses and also any other type of house, but it's a really important program that allows us to work with community members who make our city so special and bring them the home repairs that they so very badly need. We also, after we work with the city to forgive their city fines so that they can improve their lives with a safer home and a life that's debt-free from the city because of the home violations that they had incurred without the ability to do the needed home maintenance that they had. So we hope that you will consider donating to the PRC to support this program. You can do so via our website, prcno.org, and you can click donate now and make a donation of your choice. We do ask that our suggested donation for our shotgun home videos is $25, but any amount that you're able to give is so appreciated by all of us because it allows us to help these people in need in our city and do the work that we do at the PRC all year long. So thank you so much for considering it. I have screaming children in the background, which I'm sure many of you can relate to, so I apologize for any background noise, but I hope you can still hear me clearly. I just also want to mention that while you're on our website, you should check out our fabulous merchandise, including our book, which is Building on the Past, Saving Historic New Orleans. It's a gorgeous coffee table book, makes a great gift any time of year. This book, all of our books, all of our t-shirts, our great masks, everything that we sell, all of our merchandise is 20% off for the month of June. So stock up while you can. We have lots of fun stuff. No matter where you live across the country, I saw someone chiming in from Arizona. Welcome. We're so glad you're with us. You can celebrate your love of New Orleans architecture, of shotgun houses, no matter where you are. Get your Baby Got Back Camel-Back shotgun t-shirt and say it loud and proud, no matter where you are, that you love New Orleans shotgun houses, and you will support the PRC as you do so. So again, you can shop day or night, prcno.org. One more thing before we get started. We will be launching our fabulous Shotgun House Tour series this weekend, and we have 6 gorgeous homes on tour that you can watch with us, take tours with the homes with us all through the month of June. These are going to be incredible opportunities to be inspired, to learn, and to enjoy the architecture of our city with some really cool homeowners. So I hope you'll check it out. And we are launching a new feature this year that we're really excited about. In addition to just watching the home tours and admiring everything you see throughout the homes, our very talented staff has created a digital design guide that has all the details of what's inside the home, everything from the types of countertops to the types of tile and where they were purchased. All the details of these beautiful homes, how they were renovated, where you can find the same sort of items that are in those homes. That is all put together in a gorgeous new digital guide. We're launching this year, and we're really excited to bring it to you. And anyone who donates during Shotgun Month, $25 or more to the PRC will receive this complimentary gift, so that you can live your beautiful shotgun New Orleans life. And if you can afford it, I know I can't sometimes, but buy some of the stuff that you admire during these tours. So anyways, last bit of housekeeping before I turn things over to Katrina. You can see me, I cannot see you, but you can communicate with me. So at the bottom of your screen, we have two buttons that you can click. One is called chat and one is called Q&A. I'll be monitoring both of those throughout Katrina's presentation. And at the end, we can relay some of your questions to Katrina, do a little Q&A. So throughout her presentation, at any point, just go ahead and pop your question in. I'll be watching. And at the end, we can convey your questions to Katrina and get all of your burning questions about shotgun houses answered. So without any further ado, thank you so much, Katrina, for joining us today. We're really excited about this program and to learn more about our beloved vernacular architecture type, shotgun houses. Over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. I love your earrings. They're so fun. Let me go ahead and share my screen with y'all. This is only the third time I've done a Zoom presentation, so bear with me for a second till I get it. Voila, perfect. I'm still here, it's still here, perfect. All right, so welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be talking about shotguns with you today. Normally I do this kind of thing in person as a tour guide, but a presentation is also pretty neat because we have some really good slides. So this is my house. I love shotguns. I live in one. This one is called a Neoclassical double shotgun. And if you're not sure what that means yet, by the end of this talk, you will. I'm going to walk you through how to describe these things. So let's start at the beginning. What does a shotgun mean exactly? And why do we find them in New Orleans? Well, a shotgun house is characterized as being 1 story tall, going back 4 to 6 rooms deep. So if you notice here on the floor plan, it's just a series of rooms that open up into each other. Over the years, there have been many theories as to the origins of shotgun houses. It was identified as a unique type of house as late, I think it's late, as 1936 by an LSU anthropologist and geographer, Fred Kiffin. And he was describing it as a long, narrow house, 1 room in width, from 1 to 3 rooms deep, with a frontward facing gable. And I want to pay special attention to the frontward facing gable. That's where the where the wall comes up to meet the roof. And this is going to be important later. So you want to think of it as this triangle in the front of the house. Now, he and his team were very interested in sort of figuring out why they were spaced where they were placed. And so they drew up these maps. And on the left-hand side, we have the natural landscape. And this includes coastal marshes and prairies and floodplains and waterways and things like that. And then if you look at the picture on the right, we have the cultural landscape. And that explains like what's the density of shotgun houses in that area. And so if you notice, on the right-hand side, the area that's all waterways and floodplains, that's the same places where we have the really dense shotguns. The little black spaces say that it's 80 to 100% shotgun houses in that area. Of course, they're doing this back in the 30s. So that obviously has changed, but I find this map really, really interesting. Then we had some more theories over the years. In the 1950s, William B. Kipmeyer stated that perhaps the layout was more loosely related to Native American origins, and that they even came later than we thought. They actually started in the 1880s. And then in the 1960s, Samuel Wilson hypothesized that perhaps these long, narrow houses are developed just as a way to get many houses on a block, because we had really quick moving populations. We had a lot of people coming in at the same time, and so we needed ways to house these folks. And so we just put along a lot of narrow houses in one block. That's called the narrow lot theory. And then we have John Michael Vlach. He's an anthropologist, and his groundbreaking work, The Shotgun House, an African Architectural Legacy, traced the origin of shotgun houses from New Orleans through Haiti, well, starting in Africa through Haiti to New Orleans. He said that the links to Africa are not simple or direct. The story behind the shotgun involves long migrations, the conduct of the Atlantic slave trade, the rise of free Black communities, the development of vernacular and popular traditions in architecture, and the growth of American industrial needs. All of this lines up with the history. So as early as 1681, there were 2,000 enslaved Africans in the French area of Saint-Domingue, and their numbers grew to as many as almost 500,000 just 110 years later. A majority of the Africans were Yoruba people from the Nigeria area. As they were required to build their own homes in Saint-Domingue, they built houses that they were familiar with from back home. These were 2 rooms wide, 1 room deep. In the 1790s, the Haitian Revolution happened, and many people fled to the island of Cuba. That's what this map is showing us here. And then in 1809, this group of refugees was exiled from Cuba, and they arrived in New Orleans. We have almost 10,000 people showing up. This literally doubled the population of New Orleans overnight, basically. They needed new houses fast. And so what better type of housing than a simple structure with no hallways or stairwells? Many of the refugees found themselves in the building trade at this time by necessity. This type would become very useful for housing all immigration groups heading to New Orleans, including the Irish, the Germans, and the Italians as well. So yeah, this map is just showing us from Saint-Domingue, we had many people that went to Cuba, they went to New Orleans, they went to Savannah, they went to Norfolk, they went to Philadelphia in the Northeast. So many Haitian refugees ended up all over. Now, this is what I find it really interesting. On the slide on the right, we have a rural Haitian shotgun. So this is half mile north of Port-au-Prince. And then on the left, we have a Yoruba house from Africa. This is in Nigeria. So both of these houses share the same measurements. They're 10 feet by 20 feet. Whether you put the door on the smaller side or the wider side, that was a cultural difference. Of course, in New Orleans here, a shotgun will have the door on the front. But either way, the original measurements were 10 feet by 20 feet. Both houses are constructed out of wattle and daub, and with thatch roofs on top. And both of these pictures were taken in 1973. Then we have some of Vlach's pictures of urban houses in Haiti. And I find these pictures really interesting as well. The picture on the left, I mean, it seems to be a little bit taller and narrower than ours, but we have 2 bays in the front. This is a single shotgun. And then the one on the right, 2 bays, single shotgun. But look at that gingerbread. I know of some Swiss chalet houses that sort of look like this in New Orleans. Very neat. I really like this picture too. This one is, another shotgun house. They call it a calle house in Cuba, in Haiti. And it has the gingerbread on it, in the gable. And it also has 2 bays. If one of those was a window and the other one was a door, it would be basically our houses. It's fascinating. Now let's go back to the original shotgun slide, because I think it's very important to note that shotguns are especially great for our hot tropical climate, which Haiti and Africa, the Nigeria area also have. Due to the lack of hallways and lined up interior doors, there's tons of airflow. These houses also have tall ceilings from 10 to 14 feet high. So if you remember this from 8th grade science class, heat rises. So you're going to want the ceilings to be really high, so that way the heat will be away from you. These homes are typically raised up on brick piers, which helps with flooding, but it also helps with airflow. There's nothing underneath the houses. We don't have subfloors, and in a lot of cases, we don't have insulation. These houses were built drafty in order to allow as much airflow as possible. Before air conditioning, really, you have to do the best you can to keep things as cool as possible. And I like to call this architectural trickery on tours, but basically it's just using, science to help you with keeping things cool. Now, shotguns do have a bit of an unusual name. There's 2 theories as to why they are called shotguns. Now, piggybacking on the idea that the shotgun developed in Africa, the word tow gun or shogun meant house or gathering place. There's also the story that because all the doors line up, you can shoot a gun straight through this house, and that's why it's called a shotgun. You're not going to hit anything. All the doors line up. Once shotguns arrived in New Orleans, they spread out along the Gulf Coast. And so you'll find them in Houston, you'll find them in Pensacola, you'll find them even beyond. In other places, they're called rail car houses. They can be found in both urban areas and rural areas. Now let's talk about types and styles for a moment. Types are the layouts of the building. Styles are the decorative features that'll be put on the building. I mean, if you think about it as like body type, and then you have styles, which is the clothes you put on the type. First, let's talk about non-shotgun types. Let's get that out of the way. First, we have Creole townhouses. Creole townhouses are largely built after the fires that devastated New Orleans in 1788 and 1794. So we're Spanish at this time. These are multi-story buildings with commercial on the first floor and apartments up on top. They typically do not have interior stairwells or hallways. Their special features include porte-cocheres, which are carriageways, and entresols, which are storage areas. Now let me explain this to you. You can see it on the picture on the left. You have a door that has glass in it, and then you have a door next to it that are shutters. The door with the glass in it is a porte-cochere. It's a carriageway. So if you look at the layout here, we have a carriageway that goes basically to the back of the house. You're going to bring your carriage in and then enter your house through the back, because you probably don't have anything to do with the store. You're definitely not going to be cutting through the store on the bottom every time you need to go home. So you're going to go through the carriageway on the side. Then if you notice, between the first story, the ceiling of the first story, and the floor of the second story, there's a bit of a space there. There's a gap. That's called an entresol. An entresol, like I said, is a storage area for the store. Then we have double gallery houses. Double gallery houses are also multi-story buildings. Unlike Creole townhouses, though, they do not have commercial on the bottom. They're strictly residential buildings. They also tend to include prominently decorated front doors. You are not going to have a carriageway anymore. You are going to have interior stairwells and interior hallways. The Americans are really going to like interior hallways. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But it's just a preference. It's a cultural difference. So if you notice on the floor plan here, you go in through the front door, which is located on the left side of the house, and then you can access your upstairs if you like, or you can go into your double parlor. In the back, you would have a dependency, a service wing, and you can access that from the inside. Then we have center hall cottages. These are single-story houses. They're really easy to figure out because they're 5 bays, which means you have 4 windows and 1 door, and the door is located in the center. Behind that door, as you can see in the picture of the layout, the floor plan, right behind that front door, you have a hallway. And that's why this is called a center hall cottage. It's real easy to figure out. Typically, as I mentioned, the Americans do the hallways. So you're going to find these in a lot of American areas. However, there are a couple out in the Creole areas as well. Then we have Creole cottages. Creole cottages are 1.5 stories tall with a roof that slopes towards the street. And this is going to be important. So right now, just sort of settle in your mind, the roof slopes towards the street. Inside, there are 2 rooms by 2 rooms, followed by storage areas referred to as cabinets. There are no hallways inside Creole cottages. The rooms open up into each other. Behind the house, you will typically find a paved courtyard and a dependency or support building. If you read Benjamin Latrobe's journals, one of the interesting things that he says about Creole cottages is you can tell who's living in the Creole cottages, and this is the 1820s, by the way. He says you can tell who's living in them by how they lay out their rooms. So if Americans live in Creole cottages, they typically put their public rooms in the front and their private rooms in the back. But if Creole people live in Creole cottages, they will put the bedrooms on one side and the public rooms on the other side. Basically figuring that if they're going to have their guests hang out in the courtyard, they might as well go through 2 public rooms instead of going through a public room and a private room to get to the backyard. I just think that's neat. There's nothing telling you which room should be what room. There's no closets or anything. Now, finally, now that we know about non-shotguns, let's talk about shotguns. So first we have to start with single shotguns because they're the simplest type of shotgun house. They are 1 story tall with 4 to 5 rooms deep and 1 room wide, right? There's no hallway. All the rooms open up into each other. These houses are great for couples. They become a little bit more awkward with families, and then they are very tough with roommates. There's not much privacy in single shotgun houses. They have a door and a window in the front. These are 2-bay houses. These are variations of singles. On the left, we have the side hall, and the side hall is going to look a lot like a single, except it has an extra hallway running on the side. And this is going to be an interior hallway. That's definitely going to help out with privacy, for sure. In the front of the house, you're going to have 3 bays. You have 2 windows, 1 door. And then if you look to the right, we have the side gallery. And the side gallery is really one of my favorite things because you might go through a door on the front and you're actually still outside on the porch. Think of the porch as a exterior hallway, if you will. I find these really fun and they're actually really pretty rare. There's not as many of these variations. Then we have doubles. Doubles are basically 2 singles side by side. They share a middle wall. They are double wide and they're built to be 2 apartments. These days, many doubles have been converted over into single residences. My house is a double that's remained 2 separate residences. In the front, you have 4 bays, 2 doors, 2 windows. Now guys, I have to take a moment to discuss the differences between double shotguns and Creole cottages with you, because to the casual observer, they may look pretty much the same, right? They have 2 doors and 2 windows in the front. The main difference is going to be, or the best way to tell is the roof line. So in the front, the Creole cottage, that's the one on the right, the roof slopes towards the sidewalk. And then the one on the left is a double shotgun because you have the front gable, right? So Creole cottages on the right, side gabled, and then shotgun houses on the left are going to be front gabled. That's where you see the triangle where the wall meets the roof. It's also handy to know that Creole cottages are square buildings and shotgun houses are rectangle buildings. Here's a quick little chance to see a double shotgun and a Creole cottage side by side out in the wild. Can you tell the difference? On the left, we have our Creole cottage. On the right, we have our double shotgun. Now, I do want to mention that double shotguns can also have hips roof. That means it's shingled on all four sides. And you'll be able to see from the side here that the blue house is the Creole cottage, side gabled, and the Creole cottage, excuse me, and the double shotgun is the pink one. And then we have Camel-Backs. Love Camel-Backs. This is what happens when you need more space, but you can't expand outward. You go up. It has a camel hump, basically. That's how I like to think of it. Camel-Backs are additions that can be found on singles or doubles, and they're not really uniform in size or shape. You know, might be one room up there, might be two rooms up there, might be, you know, a bedroom and a bathroom. That's going to be super handy. But they're really interesting, so definitely keep an eye out for them. And now we get to shotgun styles. One of the great things about shotguns is how easy it is to change their style. They're built in New Orleans from the 1820s to the 1940s, and so they're decorated with whatever style of the day was. So do keep in mind that house styles are exactly like clothing styles, right? This is all about fashion. Every style is either a reaction or builds on what came before. And it appears to me that we like to cycle back to our grandma's stuff. So we're not interested in our mom's stuff, you know, that's already been done, but we have this sort of nostalgia for our grandma's stuff. We'll see that with the classic styles. So first we have Greek Revival. Greek Revival style was prominent in New Orleans from 1830s to 1850s. This style became very popular in the United States in general because we were a democracy and we wanted to copy the best democracy, which is Greece. So if you go to Washington, D.C., it is full of Greek Revival architecture. This is a very strong style. You know, at the time when America was founded, there were tons of people that thought that America wouldn't last. You needed a king to tell you what to do and to make rules and things. And we built this really strong architecture style just to let people know, no, we are a democracy and we are very strong. And here's our strong style. So the features of this style are going to be just boxy stuff. You know, we have boxy columns, we have rectangular windows. We also have dentils. And if you've never heard of dentils before, they're pretty fun. Along the roof line there, you see those little squares. Those are called dentils because they look like teeth. And they're great. And that seems to be the thing that everyone remembers of when we go on tour. When they come back and see me a few years later, they'll be like, those are dentils. I remember that. I also want to point out this door inset that I added. This is called a Greek key door. And basically, don't look at the door so much or the transom. We need to really focus on the big white door frame. It's wider at the top, then it indents a little bit, and then both legs flare out as you get down towards the bottom. This is known as a Greek key door. And so anytime you see that, you're going to be dealing with Greek Revival. I added this other picture because look at all those Greek key doors. Sometimes they're called cross-setted doors too. Good to know. But Greek key doors, they're surrounding the doors, the windows. They're really into that. We have dentils here as well and boxy columns. Then we have Italianate. And Italianate is sort of the reaction to boxy Greek Revival style. So we go through Greek Revival, we've been doing it for 20 years or so, 30 years, and everyone's just bored. You know, sure, we're a democracy, we like that, but man, I'd like my house to look something different, right? This is a new era already. And so we start doing Italianate. Italianate is going to be softer. It's not going to have the same rules. It's not going to be so imposing. We have arches now. We have cast iron. You're going to see arched windows a lot. This one does not have that, but you'll see arched windows as well. Anything? Cast iron. Cast iron was a newer technique that was made by pouring molten iron into molds. And so that's how you're able to get those really detailed pieces in the ironwork. Now here we have Greek Revival Italianate transitions. And if you happen to take a tour with us in the Garden District, we're going to find tons of Greek Revival Italian transitions because a lot of the houses are built in the 1850s. So as we're switching this style, tons of houses are being built and they're using features of both. They haven't quite jumped into Italianate yet. They still like some of the boxy features. So anyway, notice the house on the left. We have dentils, we have boxy columns. That's Greek Revival. But then we have a lot of arches. We have arched windows, we have an arched door. We even have coins that's spelled Quoins. And those are those little blocks on the corners there. Those are called coins, and they sort of like give you a rustic kind of look. It's a little bit more decoration. Then we have Eastlake Style, and this is originally developed by an Englishman named Charles Eastlake in the 1860s. He published a book on furniture decoration, and it had a lot of spindles in it, and he wanted to create a handcrafted movement. But by the time these ideas came to the United States, we decided we would use machines, and we would make it faster and cheaper. And so we were able to cover everything in these beautiful spindles. Mr. Eastlake was very upset when they named this after him. He said, "I find American tradesmen continually advertising what they are pleased to call Eastlake furniture, the production of which I have had nothing whatever with to do, and for the taste of which I should be very sorry to be considered responsible." So he was really upset with Eastlake, but man, I really like it. I think they look like little doll houses. We have the spindles, of course, but then we have a lot of texture going on here. So please be sure to get a good look at these pictures. We have a lot of fish scale shingles in the gables. We have some really interesting windows. You know, we don't just have plain square windows anymore. We have this diamond pattern on the purple house. So that's pretty interesting as well, I think. And then look at the multicolored one. This teal one is just, gosh, it's fantastic. I think they're great. Then we have bracket style. Bracket style is a subset of Eastlake style because we're using jigsaws, and we start adding these brackets for porch overhangs. And it's not exclusive to porch overhangs. You're going to find them holding up balconies as well. But for the bracket style shotgun, it's going to be holding up the porch or holding up the ceiling of the porch. I added these two right here on the bottom just to show you that they're going to be carved different. You know, you're not going to have one standard kind. There's all different kinds, and they're really special. You can order them or you could have been ordered to order them out of catalogs. They would have been mail ordered from all over the place. I added this picture of the house with the orange trim because I think it's really neat. It was a double shotgun house, but someone decided they needed more space, and so they lifted the whole house up and then added a ground floor beneath it. But look at these details. We have the arched windows, we have the sunburst patterns in the gables, and then we have these beautiful crane windows. I just think they're fantastic. I do want to tell you, though, that sometimes Creole cottages have brackets on them as well. And so sometimes they're a little tricky. These double shotguns and Creole cottages, man, they manage to look very, very similar. And adding brackets to them, adding brackets to Creole cottages does not help the situation at all. So keep an eye out for these things. They're pretending to be bracketed double shotguns. Then we get into Neoclassical. If you remember, this is my house here on the left. The Neoclassical movement is a reaction to the Eastlake movement. So we got really busy. Everything's being cut out of jigsaws. There's a lot going on with the decorations. And so we need to scale it back a little bit. And so in order to scale it back, we look into our history and decide we want to go back to classical form. So we want to suggest classicalism, but we don't want to copy Greek Revival. And so we bring back columns, but now they're Roman columns. Roman columns they're smooth. They're not fluted, right? The Greek columns, remember, had those lines going down them. Well, in this case, they're actually smooth columns. They're cigar shaped. Instead of plain, simple square windows, we now have lozenge shaped glass. So if you notice the windows, they're not just plain anymore. We're starting to get really great decorative glass. This style starts with the Columbian Exposition in Chicago, and spreads out all over the United States and runs from 1895 to 1920. Now, a special note about neoclassical, it's not just houses. Neoclassical ends up being used for public buildings everywhere. So you might see like the San Francisco Town Hall or Union Station in DC or Grand Central Station, or even the court down in the French Quarter. That court that looks like it's out of place, the Supreme Court, that's neoclassical style. So keep an eye out for them. You're going to find them all over the United States, and you're going to find them in our shotguns. Here's another example of neoclassical. Notice the columns. Notice these little sculpture swag pieces that are painted blue. You start getting like, it's like Greek Revival, but it's got added elements to it, right? We have those fan-shaped windows, fan-shaped windows over the windows. I guess those would be fan-shaped transoms, if you will. It's neat. Then we have California and Craftsman style. This is another reaction to simplify after Eastlake. Instead of looking backwards to classical things, we start looking forward to new ideas. And so one of the hallmarks of the style is just simple, plain, clean lines, right? We have tapered columns. We have exposed rafters. We want to sort of show the bones of the house. We don't want to hide that anymore. Yeah, it's straight lines and tapered columns. There's just a lack of decoration. It's very, very simple. I added this picture here because I think the doors are really interesting. Normally, a double shotgun would have 2 doors and 2 windows, but this one has 2 doors because of the side lights. And I just think that's kind of neat. Then this one here is another Craftsman style. We have the tapered columns. Then we have this window that would be referred to as a Japanese style window. This style, by the way, is developed by Charles and Henry Green in Pasadena, California, and then it spread out all over the United States. You know, at this time, Hollywood's starting up and people are really looking to the West for new things. Shotgun houses are an excellent example of housing that sprang up as a result of the city's needs for as a result of the needs of the city's growing immigrant population. They were quick to build, cheap, and worked well with our hot subtropical climate. But as time went on, our feelings changed about them. With no hallways, they lacked privacy. With tall ceilings and no insulation, they are not energy efficient. As a single-story building, they are really small. People abandoned shotguns, preferring larger homes with modern amenities. Even worse, many shotguns have been demolished to make room for new construction. We have lost so many important historical structures. This house right here is the former home of Buddy Bolden, who's credited as being the father of jazz. It has been largely abandoned for decades, but in the past couple of years, efforts have been made to restore it into a museum to showcase the life of Buddy Bolden. From these humble little houses, amazing things were accomplished. So if we believe that every building tells a story, shotguns might be the building that tells the most complete story of our history, all of it. These homes were designed in Africa, developed further due to the slave trade in Haiti, and then brought to New Orleans in the minds of refugees who arrived here in 1809. They were the perfect house for the time. They were quick to construct and worked well with our hot climate. They were quickly adopted by other groups of immigrants who had the same needs, cheap shelter. Shotgun homes may have fallen out of favor in the past, but these days there's a certain amount of pride in living in one of these quintessential New Orleans houses. I found this fabulous art by Terrence Osborne, and these were poor people houses, and now they're elevated into art, and I just love that. I love this picture. Now you just sat here for a little while and you listened to me talk about shotguns. So I wanted to sort of test what you learned, at least, you at home, if you can test yourself, I guess. This is not normally how we do things, but let's see some pictures. So here we have this one, cute, it's got a picket fence. This one is a side hall single. It's Eastlake Style. So by the way, when I'm telling you all these terms, that would be what you would tell your friends if you bought one. So if you bought this house, you'd be like, oh, I bought a side hall single. It's Eastlake Style. It's got beautiful spindles on it. It's pink. That's what you tell people. Then we have this one right here. This one is a double that's been converted into a single. And you could tell because it used to have 2 doors and 2 windows, but now it has, or it's double wide, and the window, or a door has been changed into a window. It only has 1 number on it. It's bracketed style. Now this one's tricky and fun. I really like this, this layout. So on the right-hand side, we have what appears to be a half Creole cottage. And then on the left, we have a single shotgun with a Camel-Back. How wonderful. And right here, this is our tricky one. This is our Creole cottage that's pretending to be a double shotgun with brackets. Now, if you want to learn more, I definitely suggest you pick up any of these books. We had Richard Campanella's Cityscapes of New Orleans. Really, any book you pick up by him is going to be fantastic. Then we have the New Orleans Architecture series. I believe there's 10 books now with the addition of Carrollton. That's a great series. And then on the right, we have the House Watcher's Guide by Lloyd Vogt. That is the most important book for tour guiding, I think. It's a really fantastic book. So I'd like to thank you all for joining me today. If you'd like to learn more, please check out a tour with us. We basically cover how our history informs our architecture, and I can't wait to see you guys out there. We do have a promo code PRC, so if you buy a ticket at nolatours.com and add PRC, you'll get $5 off your ticket. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrina. That was an incredible presentation. And I want to invite everyone now to submit your questions. You can either do so via the chat box or the Q&A box. And we already have one for you, Katrina.
Sure.
No name associated with this question, but someone has asked for information about the foundations of these structures. So can you talk a little bit about piers and the foundation of shotgun houses?
Sure. I mean, shotguns they're placed on brick piers, and a lot of that reason is going to be because, I mean, so if you're not from here, you might not know, but we cannot have basements in New Orleans because our soil is silt and water, and so we cannot have basements here. And so we definitely don't want to put our floors on the wet ground, and so we're going to raise everything up a little bit, and so that's going to be brick piers, and that's it's brick and mortar. And they will be spaced throughout. You basically will have, I mean, at least with my house, you probably have 4 or 5 foot space in between the piers, and everything's up on top of that. I hope that helps.
Thank you. That's great. I had one question come to me via text, which
Sure.
is about the colors of New Orleans houses. We have such tropical, vibrant house colors here, and you showed some wonderful pictures to illustrate that point exactly. When did that start? Has that been the case since the inception of the city, or did it come later?
So as I understand it, one of the things that's interesting is the paint colors in New Orleans, and it's because it tells you about the populations in the area. So when you're down in the Marigny and the Bywater, that's where a lot of the Creole Caribbean folks went to. That's where the Haitian refugees went to. That's where they built their homes. And so you're going to find these real vibrant Caribbean colors over there. However, if you find yourself in like the Garden District, it's going to be a little bit more subdued. That was originally an American Protestant area. And so that's what those paint colors are telling you. And then by this time, the French Quarter, there's paint color restrictions. So when you see houses over there, they're following the rules of the paint color restrictions set up by the Vieux-Carré Commission. I mean, they're not all necessarily following that. I mean, you might find some more subdued ones, even in the Marigny. They're not all bright colors over there, but you'll find it's mostly that way.
Great, thank you. Mary has asked, do the fireplaces have any influences with designs?
So if you want to look back at the floor plans, I think they include the fireplaces. I'm sorry to run through all these so quick. Yeah, so they tell you where the where the fireplaces are, typically. So you would have, if you look at this single shotgun, you have one in the front that goes, you're using two rooms are using a single fireplace, and then towards the back of the house, 2 rooms will use a single fireplace. If you look at the doubles, the fireplaces are going to be along the middle wall. Creole cottages, they have their fireplaces are in the middle as well. So yeah, it depends on the layout of the house. One of the tricky things about the doubles that are converted into singles is the fireplaces are in the middle. And so when you take these walls down, you're still going to have a fireplace in there. You have to either have it removed, which is tough, or you have to leave it in there, and then you have a fireplace in the middle of an open room. So they can be kind of tricky.
Thank you. Carol Dotson noted in the chat that the norm when she was growing up was white with green shutters. And I just wanted to comment really quickly that we have another great presenter, Michelle Duhon, who often does intro to architecture classes for us. And she says in her presentation that the kind of hunter green color was the first mass-produced commercial paint color. And so it was very popular nationwide to have white houses with these dark green shutters. And so that might be an explanation, Carol, for why that was the norm when you were growing up. I want to encourage everyone to submit your questions via the chat box or the Q&A box. We have 10 more minutes with Katrina. And so get your questions in while you can. And while I'm waiting for some more questions, I just want to shout out a few of our attendees tonight and well, first I want to thank everyone for attending. It's so wonderful to have you joining us virtually tonight. I want to thank Jay Edwards for tuning in. Jay is kind of a famous LSU researcher who has done so much in terms of researching shotgun houses and bringing new theories to light for shotgun houses. So Jay, it's wonderful to see you tuning in tonight, and we will need to have you make a presentation too soon. It's great to have you. Thanks to Brian Block for tuning in tonight. Brian is one of our fabulous homeowners whose home is going to be on the Shotgun House Tour this year. So pick up your issue of Preservation and Print magazine to read more about Brian and his husband Jeff's Shotgun House in the Maroney, and then tune in, of course, for his tour coming up in just a few days. And then also thanks to Patty Andrews for tuning in. Patty has helped the PRC for many decades to lead our stained glass tours of beautiful churches and places with notable stained glass across the region. So thanks for tuning in, Patty. It's nice to see you. And I'll kind of kick it back to more questions, Katrina. We have a question from Jonathan about shutters. What type are right and wrong for shotguns versus Creole cottages?
Well, I mean, I suppose you're going to find a lot of the louvered shutters in the shotguns. I mean, we can see it right here on these pictures. Whereas Creole cottages, if we look at them, they're going to have more the batten shutters. They're going to have they're not adjustable. They're just wood planks. As I understand it, and I don't live in the French Quarter or in a Creole cottage, but as I understand it, you kind of close up the front of the house and you spend your time in the back. That's going to be more where, you don't really sit on a front porch here. There isn't one. And so you're going to want some really strong shutters there. It's going to be, it's going to be face level for all the people walking by. And so these shutters are batten shutters typically. And then the shotguns, we have a lot of louvered shutters. They might not be as close to the street. That would be handy as well. And the ages would make the difference. My bad. Yeah, the age would make the difference. So the Creole cottages are older, and so they're going to have the older shutter style, and then you get louvered shutters when the shotguns come in. Right.
That's great. Okay, we have 2 questions about Camel-Backs.
Sure.
The first is, were Camel-Backs always added, or were they part of the original designs? And I'm especially curious about this because I live in a 1905 Camel shotgun that had an original Camel-Back that was very small. So I'm curious.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
I understand that you can get them original or you can get them added later on. I have one of my friends just added a Camelback to his house. So you can still do it. People do still do it, especially if you have like a single and you only have this little narrow lot. So people are still making Camelbacks, or they would be original sometimes.
And that leads to Susan's question, which I think you've already answered, but the question is, can you add a Camelback to any shotgun style?
I mean, I think you would have to talk to the HDLC about about what they would let you do, and then it might depend on like the neighborhood, or I'm not even sure what it would depend on. You would have to ask them. Don't let me give you permission for this. You have to ask the real people in charge. But yeah, you would have to talk to the HDLC, and they would decide whether or not it was appropriate for your house.
Great. And we have a question about plumbing and bathrooms. Were they
Sure.
a part of the original house plan for some of the original shotguns?
So no, they wouldn't have been. We didn't get running water until later, until much later. So a lot of these were built without plumbing, and then they had to run it through. I know that I have been in some houses where the kitchen and the bathrooms are both in the back, and that leads me to believe that it was like sort of an addition that was added later on, or they took over a whole bedroom. But it's not like if you find them in the middle, that makes me really kind of interested in like how they put it in, or if it was put in original. I'm not really sure about plumbing. It would depend on when the age of the house, right? That would have to tell you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Craig has asked a kind of difficult question. He's putting you on the spot here.
Okay.
Katrina, do you have a favorite shotgun in New Orleans apart from your own house?
Apart from my own house, yeah, that's a tough one. I have guests ask me all the time, like, what's my favorite house in the tour? And I feel like, they're all telling us something important. They're telling us when it was built, that kind of thing. Um, this one right here, with the tulips on the front on the left, that's one of my favorite shotguns. It's absolutely adorable, and it's on my garden district tour, and the flowers are always great, and the lady that lives there is really nice, and I love this house. I love brackets. I think they're really fun.
Yeah, agreed. They bring such wonderful variety.
Yeah.
That leads to Ken's question, which is more about your tours and your
Sure.
business, which is if he took the French Quarter tour or the Garden District tour, which one would afford more views of shotguns?
Well, so that's a really good question. Well, so gosh, it would depend on the route. We only have a couple shotguns in the garden district. And then we have a lot more of, big mansion and double galleries and things like that. I used to do an Irish Channel tour, and that would run us through some really great shotgun houses. But the Garden District has a couple, the French Quarter has a couple. I can't tell you which one would be more because there's really just a couple in both of those neighborhoods.
Got it. Thank you. Any last questions for Katrina? Please add them to the chat or the Q&A box. Susan has just given us a great question. She says, we live in a double Camelback. The kitchen door is on the opposite side from the other doors. Why?
Yeah, so we call them shotguns because all the doors are lined up, but I've lived in two where the doors weren't lined up. And so I'm not sure why, it's called a shotgun because of that, but it doesn't always work that way. Maybe the kitchen was added later on. If you know the year of your house, maybe that's why. If all the rest of them line up, but that one is the weird one, then maybe it was an added kitchen later on. I'm not sure. We'd have to learn more about your house specifically, I think.
Yeah, one of the questions was about modern additions. And so, to Katrina's point, these homes have been modified in so many different ways. Over time, each house has its own story and its own unique characteristics and continues to evolve through time with modern additions and changes and all of that. you know, the PRC launched the Shotgun House Tour over 20 years ago. And it was, like Katrina said, it was in response to the fact that so many were being demolished because they just weren't seen as being amenable to modern life. And so, you know, we need to treasure these homes, this, you know, special vernacular type for New Orleans. Former former council person Stacey Head had a great quote a few years ago in response to so many demolitions of smaller shotgun houses, and she said it's like death by 1,000 cuts for our neighborhood. When you lose so many shotguns, you know, you might think it's just one small shotgun house, but when you lose so many of them, it adds up, and it really works to change the character of a neighborhood and change the character of our city. So these homes are very adaptable. They can be, you know, renovated and adapted for modern life, and we need to save as many of them as we can. So Katrina, I want to thank you so sincerely for your excellent presentation. This has been such a treat. Thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. Again, please consider supporting the PRC in our work in neighborhoods across the city by donating at prcno.org. And this is just the start. This is the kickoff of Shotgun House Month. We have incredible programming throughout the month of June on both shotgun houses, and also our Maintain Right programming is continuing this month, which is all sorts of lectures and classes on how to maintain your historic home. Topics like plaster. We did one last night on termites. Everything you need to know to keep your your historic home modern and safe. Please tune in all through the month of June. We have excellent programming. The full list of all of our programs is on our website, prcno.org, and on our social accounts. I hope you're following us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So Katrina, thank you so much. For those of you who are local, you should have a staycation and take one of Katrina's tours, New Orleans Architecture Tours. Check out her website. And for those of you who don't live in New Orleans but love to come visit the next time you're here, check out Katrina's tours, and you, I'm sure, will be amazed. So thanks again, Katrina, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, guys.